Is the ongoing government shutdown in the United States a devastating blow for America's cryptocurrency aspirations? We're going to be investigating just what the government shutdown might mean for things like Bitcoin futures and the Bitcoin ETFs, as well as the innovation that is going on inside the United States in spite of all of the difficulties that the federal government is placing in front of the crypto industry. Just before we jump into that, a quick note that Binance.je has launched a service allowing people in Europe to invest in cryptocurrencies using either British pounds or euros. If you want to get signed up for that, there is a link down below. The ongoing government shutdown is devastating for the crypto industry. Basically, what we have is that major functions of the government are simply not working right now. So the SEC, for example, announced that it will be limiting its operations, reducing its staff during the shutdown, and restricting the functions to those that meet critical needs. And if you think the Bitcoin ETF is a critical need of the SEC, no way, sirree, Bob. It is definitely not. And the US CFTC is also doing limited staffing during the federal government shutdown. Now, how long the federal government shutdown will go on? Anybody's guess when it comes down to it. But the longer it goes on, the longer the delays for these key items that people have been putting so many hopes on will be. So the possibility of an extended government shutdown could definitely impact the cryptocurrency industry in the United States. Obviously, to start off with, it does really impact the launch of Backed, particularly their futures, because if the CFTC does not have the staff sitting around to regulate and to come up with the plan to let them do that, well, then that is going to be delayed. In fact, Backed has announced that basically there is an indefinite delay at this point on the launch of their futures contracts, which is unfortunate, but considering the dysfunction of the American government, not really surprising. But in the background of all this, it's not as though the Intercontinental Exchange has just gone to sleep and forgotten about all of the things that they want to do. No, in fact, they've actually gone out and acquired an established futures broker, hoping, of course, to strengthen their Bitcoin offering. When it does come, it will come at some point. The only question is, of course, when. Now, this government shutdown could lead to one of the SEC's longest shutdown in recent years. So yeah, the Bitcoin ETF, that is on the table for a long time from now, because you have to realize, again, the SEC and the CFTC are regulating different things here, but for both of these organizations, you have to realize that when they do come back to work, there is going to be a massive backlog. Even if they came back to work today, there would already be a massive backlog of things they have to sort through before they can get back to doing the things they want to do in terms of regulations. Now, how long the government shutdown will go on will, of course, indicate how much backlog they have to work through when they get back to work and how much of a delay we will actually see in the offering of either the Bitcoin ETF or, of course, Backed or other companies' crypto futures. The SEC and the CFTC both have issued orders basically freezing all pending administrative proceedings until farther notice. Obviously, this will not be changed until we see the federal government get back to work. Now, the fascinating thing here is that technically, if the SEC fails to approve or deny the ETF by the deadline, then the ETF should, in theory, be automatically approved. But in reality, that probably won't happen. The SEC will probably just put out a one-page denial or a one-page request for withdrawal or a one-page delay notice or something like that. So even though they're running at a minimum staff, they're probably just going to keep kicking the can down the road on all these things instead of just letting it happen. But it's a possibility. It's a technical possibility anyway. Obviously, the Bitcoin ETF and the Bitcoin futures contracts by Backed get a lot of attention, but that's not all that's going on. There are about 60 different companies which have applied for Reg A+. The word on the street is anyway. Now, Reg A+ is basically a mini IPO. So this permits the eligible issuers to offer securities to the general public, not just to accredited investors. And yes, some of those will definitely be crypto projects. But all of those companies' aspirations and wishes, on hold. Sorry guys, you're just gonna have to wait like everyone else for the government to stop being so dysfunctional. Something to keep in mind too is that the Reg A Plus is something very specific, that there will still be a lot of companies which don't do any of that because there are a lot of filing requirements. There's the SEC review that goes on when you start doing this. So to really avoid these ongoing SEC reporting obligations, a lot of projects will of course still choose to just go with accredited investors. Rich getting richer, poor man cut out. You know the deal, guys. But that is the reality because of the onerous regulatory system which is in place, which makes it very difficult for these companies to bring their offerings to the general public. There have even been some speculations that the US dollar might be affected negatively because of the inability of the Federal Reserve performance duty as expected in such economic conditions. I don't think that's going to be the case. You notice that in the federal government shutdown, that the key organizations, the military is not shutting down, is it? Well, that would be wonderful. But unfortunately, the military still operating at full functionality. Yay! Death and destruction. Cool. So I don't see that the economic weapons of the United States will be shut down either, or that it'll have a big negative impact on the US economy. Yeah, there might be some, temporary loss in confidence or things like this, but the overall picture is that the US dollar is not going to go down because of the temporary federal government shutdown. And when you look at the big picture, we can see Bitcoin is really not super influenced by events like this. Yes, the Bitcoin ETF gets a lot of people excited. Yes, Bitcoin futures get some people excited as well. These are important things. What BACT is trying to do is going to be very exciting. But of course, remember, we don't need Wall Street. The SEC and CFTC are regulating for products for Wall Street. Please remember that. These things are not for normal human beings, although some of the different offerings from like Reg A Plus companies could be for normal humans, and there is a certain amount of getting excited about that. Silver lining here, of course, is that the IRS has had to send home 56% of its staff. This is an agency which is already dramatically underfunded. Then to send home even more of their staff during tax season. Not a lot of audits are going to be happening, let's just say that. And they're already struggling to adapt to the new tax policies which have been put in place recently. So there's that, I guess, winning, maybe. Thank you so much to Catherine Wu and Jake Chervinsky for their insider insights on what's happening in the industry. Now, the federal government is one thing. But let's take it to the state level, because there's some really interesting innovation happening at the state level. Because remember, the state governments haven't shut down, just the federal government has shut down. So the states, well, the federal government can't regulate really very well and takes a lot of time, and there's all these delays, the SEC and the CFTC. We see state governments pushing ahead with very innovative legislation and playing with this technology, trying new things, and that's very exciting. We see, for example, Vermont putting insurance on the blockchain. Nevada has issued 1,000 marriage certificates on the Ethereum blockchain. Wyoming is bringing land records to the blockchain. BitPay is helping Ohio accept Bitcoin for taxes. Very important legislation right now in Colorado is on the table. 2 Colorado senators have filed a bill to introduce a digital token act. This would allow cryptocurrencies to bypass securities laws. Massive, massive if passed, of course. That could be a leading legislation within the United States in terms of cryptocurrency regulations. Nice to see, of course, the new government in Colorado working on delivering the economy of the future. And of course, over in New York has become the first state to create a cryptocurrency task force. Yes! Task force, cool. Studying the regulation, use, and definition of digital currency. The governor signed the bill dubbed the Digital Currency Study Bill into act late last month. Pretty cool. We see where the innovation's happening. The innovation is happening at the state level. This is part of the design of the United States. The states can have the ability to innovate, where we see the federal government being largely dysfunctional. is what it is. But it's just interesting to note that even though the federal government is having all of this dysfunction, that there is still innovation happening, and that these major crypto things, the ETF and the futures that we've been so hung up on, they're delayed for a long time. Probably not going to have them anytime soon. Even once the government starts working again, I imagine those things will not be number one on the desk in terms of priorities. So it's gonna be a while. Don't hold your breath on the Bitcoin ETF, guys. Just my 2 Satoshis. I'd love to know your thoughts on any of these stories down below in the comments section. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come over here and watch this video. You guys are super awesome, so thank you so much. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up would be supremely appreciated. If you're new around here, subscribe to the channel. You can also hit that notification bell to stay up to date when I put out a new video. Long live the blockchain, and peace out till next time.